Thank you for listening to the Speaking with Confidence podcast. Give us a review to tell everyone why you love the podcast. You can also download, like, and share the podcast with friends. Be sure to visit formingforpublicspeaking.com and sign up for Forming for Public Speaking course. It's a step-by-step system to help you become the confident and powerful speaker you've always wanted to be. Welcome to Speaking with Confidence, the podcast dedicated to helping you unlock the power of effective public speaking. I'm Tim Newman, a recovering college professor turned communication coach, and I'm thrilled to guide you on your journey to becoming a powerful communicator. I want to thank each and every one of you for your support. It truly means the world to me. Please visit timnewmanspeaks.com to get your free ebook, The Top 21 Challenges for Public Speakers and How to Overcome Them. Today's guest is Craig Mattson. Craig is an organizational researcher who serves as a professor of communication at Calvin University. He's written several books and numerous essays, often exploring communicational complexities of organizational life. But when he's not writing and reading and podcasting, he's enjoying the natural world, hiking, running, and playing driveway pickleball. Craig lives with his wife Rhoda in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and their 4 adult children live, study, and work across the Midwest. Craig, welcome to the show.
So grateful to be here, Tim.
So let me ask you
I love the concept of the show, and I love talking about talk. So let's do it.
Well, before we get into that, let me ask you a different question.
Okay.
Are you how long have you been playing pickleball, and are you a pickleball addict like a lot of the pickleball people that I know?
I have been playing for about a year, so
Okay.
I don't know if I quite have achieved addict status. I finally did go to a real pickleball court a couple of months ago, and I was glad to see that there were some transferable skills from my driveway to the court. I'm a little scared at how many people get injured playing pickleball. So there are a lot of intense people.
Yes. So I had my knee replaced. It's been a little over 2 years ago, and when I was doing my rehab in the rehab center, almost every person in there was there for rehabbing a pickleball injury. And so for me, that's enough for me to, I'm just not going to do it because I'm at the point where my body is starting to break down based on, the things I've done, in my previous life.
Right.
And so, no, I don't go skiing. I'm not playing pickleball or tennis. So I'm the golf addict. I'm that guy. So, but pickleball is something that has taken off over the last 5 to 10 years, and it's great. Here in Hilton Head, obviously it's a resort town. And this time of year, we have the locals, and it's a little bit of an older population, and it's really just taken over. I mean, courts are all over the place. So.
Yeah, I mean, I've enjoyed it as like a way to connect with my kids. I've enjoyed it as a way to connect with neighbors. But yeah, I haven't become really, really skilled at it. And I also haven't become obsessive about it yet. So I don't know if I'm just like, sort of emotionally compensating there. Like I'm not good at it. So I tell people I'm not an addict, but I do enjoy it. It's a lot of fun.
Well, it is. I mean, it is a way to get out and exercise, and as long as you don't get hurt.
That's right.
That's the key, and it's a lot of quick, quick moving, stop and go, and at least for me in my stage, that's a recipe for torn Achilles tendons, ACL injuries. Well, and ACL injury, I've only got one left, but it is what it is. Well, let's go ahead and get into the real topics of the day. Let's talk about your book here for a second. How did you develop the idea for the book Digital Overwhelm? And because I think it's a fascinating topic, and I love the way you laid it out with the examples, especially the forward, how you talk about this. It's not this, it's not this, it's not this, and this is so. How did you develop that topic?
by listening to people who are digitally overwhelmed, I think. Um, in 2022, I interviewed some 47 Gen Z and millennial professionals, and I asked them a kind of open-ended question. How are you coping with the intensities of life and work in the early 2020s? And you remember that time.
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of still in that time in
We're
many
showing,
ways,
yeah.
still in it. But yeah, as I listened to their stories, and they had some jaw-dropping stories
Mm-hmm.
about what it's like to be at work today. Yeah, I kind of summed it up as digital overwhelm. And then that was just like a catchy phrase. And I found that a lot of people, as soon as I used that phrase, would say, "Oh yeah, I'm totally in that." But then I had to do the work of defining it, and that took a little bit more careful scholarship and reflection.
Well,
Uh, yeah.
I mean, I look around at just the people that I know. I think I don't know that there's anybody that's not in digital overwhelm unless you're a kid, right? And your parents have really kind of said we're setting limits on screen time, and screen time could
Right.
be computer, TV, what have you.
Hmm.
I mean, if you're I don't know anybody that's not in digital
Yeah, I've met one person.
overwhelm.
One guy, I had a student in a class, and he told me, I don't think I'm digitally overwhelmed. So,
God bless him.
but
God bless him.
I mean, yeah, he's a fortunate soul. But most people I've talked to have said exactly, they have that sort of
Mhm.
aha factor, like, yes, that totally names where I live.
Yeah, and I don't know if you know this. We have a couple things in common that I'm not sure you know about. I left my first academic position after 16 years
Mm,
um, for a number of reasons,
mm-hmm.
um, kind of along the lines of what from what I understand, you weren't really interested in leaving your
No,
first position.
that's right. Right.
I, I I was at a point where I felt that I had accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish, and I didn't want to move up and I didn't want to move forward at that institution.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and so I was looking, and I went to Georgia State University, which was a very different institution than where I came from. I came from a small, private, 4,500 student,
Mm-hmm.
not very diverse,
Hmm.
to a division to an R1,
So yeah, Georgia State would be a very different sort of institution.
yeah, urban, and it reinvigorated me for a time until
Mm.
until COVID hit, and that's
Hmm.
that's when I realized, for me, that digital overwhelm had really kind of,
Uh-huh.
I wouldn't say sucked the life out of me, but hit
Yeah.
me pretty hard.
Yeah, I closely identify with that. I think I eventually came to define digital overwhelm as the intersection of tech development, rapid tech development, and just emotional upwelling in yourself.
Mhm.
And when those two things, meet, the emotional upwelling, all the feelings, and then just like the constant riptide of technological development. For us in COVID, was trying to get used to the Zoom room,
Mhm.
and accustom ourselves to digital spaces, but also the smartphone, and its many
Mhm.
capacities, the joy of reels on Instagram and TikTok, but also the addiction and the compulsiveness,
Yeah.
and sometimes the political ugliness of that. So
Oh, yeah.
it's just a lot. It's just a lot.
So how did you deal with it?
I was honestly, I can't say that I have like figured out a way
Okay.
to master this. I wouldn't like hold myself up as like a moral exemplar here.
Hmm.
But I mean, I have found some practices that I use to try to keep myself coming back to my center. I start the day, in a pretty boring, quiet way. I write in my journal about what happened the day before.
Okay.
And that I often find just the work of handwriting is a very sort of centering thing. I also try to read every day apart from a screen. So I, look at books, that old technology.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think, the goodness, like you've been mentioning, of just being outside and being in the natural world. All those have been sort of centering practices. But I have to say that again and again, dealing with digital overwhelm is not a one-time conversion
No, it's not.
experience. I mean, you keep returning to the work. Some of the wealthiest people in the world, some of the most powerful technologies in the world are really trying to harvest our attention and monetize it. And so the resistance to that is just an every single day thing.
It's funny, and I'm not using the term funny, haha, but it's funny how the whole idea of
Yeah.
addiction, right? When we talk about it, addiction to things like we would normally think of alcohol, drugs, gambling,
Mhm.
food. This is, I would say that the digital world is also an addiction, but we never truly really talk about it or address it
Uh-huh.
on a bigger or wider scale, right?
Uh-huh.
I mean, we may talk about it or address it, on a micro level at
Hmm.
at home
Right.
or in a team at work, but it's not really talked about on the macro level, um, publicly.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's baffling to people on the macro level what to do about it. Um, you do see some prominent figures trying to address it. The Surgeon General trying to address
Mhm.
the problems of kids' use of smartphones. Jonathan Haidt, a moral foundation psychologist, he's thought a lot about this, and he's gained some prominence advising schools and parents to pull away from their kids' use of smartphones. And then, the TikTok conversation in Congress and in the White House, that just sort of exhibits the confusion that we
Right.
feel about this and the
Mhm.
difficulty of doing anything on a sort of macro level. My book really looks at what you might call like a meso level, like a middle level.
Right.
How not just yourself, but in the sort of circle of choice that you and your coworkers have.
Right.
What can you do? What can you do? What can you share? How can we keep human there?
Yeah, and I I like the conversation that you had with, I think it was, Andrea Monday,
Uh-huh.
on one of your episodes, and I I I really related to some of the things that she was saying because in
Uh-huh.
in my world, I, I get some of those things,
Uh-huh.
with the family emergencies and the family tragedies,
Uh-huh.
and um, to be in those positions uh, and then have
Uh-huh.
to go to, for me, it was department chair and dean. For other people, it's, supervisor, boss, whatever, coworkers,
Yeah.
whatever it is, and say, I've got to go. I have to deal with these
Right.
things and being okay with that. And so I really related
Yeah.
to those stories.
Yeah, me too. I think Andrea's stories were some of the most important for me in the book too, Digital
Mhm. Yeah.
Overwhelm. I mean,
Yes.
I think in some ways she was a real
It,
wake-up call to me.
you know, and I've said this on podcasts before. When I get a book, I don't start at chapter one. That's I'm not. I'm that's I open I open the table of contents and I say, "Wow, that's interesting. I'm going to start here." So
Mm.
unless somebody tells me to, you have to start chapter one and read all the way through, I don't do that,
Mhm. Good for you.
because I will eventually read all of them, and the chapter that when I opened it up was the chapter on meaning, and that just also
Mhm.
happened to be the chapter that Andrea was in, and that
Right.
was
Yeah.
not kind of planned as I was
Uh,
going through this at
Interesting.
all. Um,
Yeah.
I think his name was Devon.
Uh-huh.
Really powerful stories that
Uh-huh.
are relatable, and you talk about inner, generational communication.
Mhm.
why are we as because I put the blame on us as the elders, the older generation. Why aren't we doing more to have those conversations and to understand the communication differences better?
Mm-hmm. I don't have a great answer to that. I think intergenerational communication is sort of kindergarten stuff. Like it's basic respect, care, empathy, curiosity. This is stuff we know how to do when we're 5 years old.
Yes.
But for some reason, it just keeps recurring as a problem in the American workplace. I do think some of it comes down to technological changes. The olders among us are like, yeah, I don't want to change things. I like the way we did it. And the youngers are all up for the world of perplexity and chat GPT and other, massive renovations in how we do work today. So I think that's a factor. But honestly, it really does come down to being humble enough to listen to people who have a different experience than you. I mean, that's pretty basic stuff.
it's,
It's not fancy.
it's not, and um, I don't think I don't think that, and I don't know that it's changed ever, because I know when I was younger, the boomers and so forth, they didn't start coming to us and say or talk to us about how we communicate. It was, you fall in line, right?
Hmm.
There wasn't any real discussion about it. This is how we're going to do things, and
Yeah,
this is what we're going to do. Um,
yeah,
and uh,
yeah.
so, but I think I think we're at a time, really, because of technology and the how quickly technology changes and the amount of access that we have to information, um, how quickly that changes.
Hmm.
If we
Yeah.
don't start to look at how the younger generations communicate, um, we're really going to be in trouble. You know,
Hmm.
so I don't know how much you know about some of the lingo that, like, cap and and all those other things. And I just sometimes I'll go through and I'll see what things mean, and I'll talk to my 30-year-old kids, and I'll start using those words, and they get upset. And I said, look, you better start learning these things, because you've got kids. But
Yeah.
that's, I mean, I do it kind of as a joke, but also halfway serious too, because
Hmm.
if you need to know how to communicate with
Hmm. Yeah, I do think language is a huge,
them.
huge dimension of this. I'm so glad you brought it up. I'm not surprised because you're a communications
Uh-huh.
guy, but I think the language differences, the language changes and evolutions that we face in the workplace and in our lives, our households, and all of that. It's like trying to surf, like you're riding a wave, and the wave conditions change every few
Yes.
seconds, it seems like. And so, yeah, I think, staying upright, staying on the board, staying flexible, staying agile, like you're trying to do, like I think that's wisdom. But it's not comfortable. And the reason that the boomers told us Xers, fall in line is like there's there's it's hard to run a company. It's hard to run an organization. And when you've got a bunch of, young kids in there, are going to destabilize things, it probably makes a certain sense to tell them to shut up and get in line. But honestly, in the long run, it's not wisdom, right? Like
Right.
in the long run, it's better to say, yeah, I think this is the way we should do things, but how are you seeing it from your angle? And even if at the end of the day you do things the way you think they need to be done because you're running the company or the team, just the fact that you're opening up your framework and you're allowing other voices in, like you're going to be better, and the situation and the team's going to be better. So yeah,
Yeah, and they're going to feel like they have ownership too, and be more invested into
yeah,
whatever it is,
right, right,
whatever it is. Uh,
yeah, that's wisdom. Yep, yep,
but it is hard. I think, we talked a little bit about offline, when I realized that I was old, and that I better, start doing things a bit different. Where do you come down on the whole idea of technology in the classroom? Phones, computers, iPads, because
yeah.
that's a tough and sticky one too.
It sure is. There is no easy answer on that. I have colleagues who like have pretty strict rules. I have a friend, a millennial friend who is a professor, and she puts up one of those. I don't know if you've ever seen these like back of the door shoe holders. They're
Yes.
you kind of put your shoes in them. Well, she has one for phones, so everybody's got a pocket that when they come in the room, they slide their phone in. I don't do that. I do tend to be a little bit lax. And what I do is basically try to cultivate tech mindfulness in the room. So I'll say, look, I have very few rules here. I'm not going to police you. I'm not going to surveil you, but I would ask you to be mindful. Like, what are you doing? And why are you doing that right now? And what does it have to do with what the rest of us are doing?
Right.
And so I periodically just have these little meditations where I say, yeah, like it's halfway through the semester, so let's kind of return to this digital fact of our lives that we just have all these algorithms and notifications that are really trying to monetize our eyeballs. And do you want that? Is that what you want for your life? And what are our goals here? So I kind of try to talk people through it
Hmm.
rather than legislating through it. But I gotta say, sometimes I get frustrated. Like
Yeah.
yesterday, I was there. We had a guest presenter in a class I was in, and I was sitting in the back row with the students, and yeah, the guy next to me was playing Wordle, and I thought, good for you. You're playing Wordle. That's amazing, but maybe not the best time for that. So ironically, the word was pupil. So,
Oh my God, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, what I would do when we had guest
yeah.
speakers or such in, I would sit in the
Yeah.
back row, and I had all their phone numbers. So they gave me their phone number, so I would sit back and I would watch.
Mm.
And if their computer was open and they were doing something else, I'd text them, put it away, put it away, put it away. Because
Oh,
if you want to do that with, I look at it from the perspective. If you want to do that with me, that's fine. We'll have a different conversation. But there's when we have guests in, we need to act professional and show respect and those types of things. But I was also really lax like you. It's you know we all have to make decisions,
yeah, that's right.
and
We all got to make choices.
and it's I hope that you're going to make good choices, and I'll help you make good choices. I'll put you
Hmm.
in positions to make good choices, but ultimately it's up to you. Uh,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
it's hard though when you know you're going through and they're not paying attention. That's actually a good thing that goes off, just so you know.
Got to fix this.
So, but
Well, I mean, I was thinking that part of the reason I'm lax is that it's not all up to us. Like, it really
right.
frustrates me that these very large corporations are so powerful.
Mhm.
I don't know that I can actually be angry with my students or with my coworkers or the people around me if they get distracted. Oh my gosh! Like,
Right.
who do I think they are? They're not a saint from the second century.
Exactly.
They are just ordinary people like me, and I'm as distractible as the rest. So I think we have to give grace to each other, even as we try to help each other keep our balance and try to find some digital health.
Yeah, and the whole idea of and my wife and I have this conversation on a regular basis. I'm I wouldn't say that I'm great, but I'm fairly good if I'm having a conversation with somebody where I'm involved in something and the phone vibrates. I'm I'm pretty good with not looking at it.
Hmm.
Um, the only time
That's
I
good.
do the only time I do is if like my because my kids have a different vibration and tone. My wife has a different vibration and tone. So
Hmm.
when they go
Oh,
off,
sure.
th- those those I stop, almost all the time. And I'm not saying that I'm perfect with this, but
Mm.
I think if we can, um, if we can just practice at times, it's okay that whatever's coming through on TikTok or whatever's coming through in that text message, as long as nobody's head's falling off, you don't have to necessarily deal with that, whatever it is, right that second. You know, my wife's in real estate, and we were having a serious conversation the other day, and one of her clients texted, and she stopped right mid sentence, and I said, "Well, what are you doing?" She said, "I'm going to lose a sale." You know what? You're not going to lose a sale if you don't respond in 10 seconds. That's not how it works. You know, so we've just been conditioned. The phone bings. It's like Pavlov's dog. That's kind of how I look at it. We got to look at it. Got to look at it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. We get a little dopamine hit, and
Uh huh.
it's hard to resist. It's hard to
Yeah.
resist.
Yeah. So what can we do with young professionals in terms of building, meaningful connections in tech heavy environments? The way I look at it is I don't care how much technology it is, how much AI, how much of all these other technological things that are going on. To me, everything is about personal relationships. And
Mm,
we have to not only build but cultivate those personal relationships. So how can we, do that with our young professionals and our kids to get them to understand that
mhm.
and get to that point?
Well, I think what I learned in my research is that, yeah, I mean, a lot of young professionals are figuring this out. They're they're grokking it, to use, a slang term. They're doing the work to figure out how to be human in these digital spaces. So it's not always a matter of how do we coach them. It's sometimes a matter of what have they figured out about something that, we might feel a little confused about ourselves. But I think there are times when, as a manager, for instance, if you're a millennial manager and you've got Gen Z team members, where you might have to have that conversation where you're like, what kind of person do you want to be on this team? What's the kind of human that you're really wanting to be, and how can we move towards that? Um, I think the sort of practical point that I have learned about keeping human in digital spaces is it takes a lot of energy, more energy than you'd think it would. And just like a simple fact, when you are in a digital meeting, you just have there's such a small portal through which you have to pour your whole personality, your whole soul, and so that just takes a lot of energy. You really do have to lean into that. You really do, you have to speak up, and I think um, that is just a sort of practical reality of digital communication. On the other hand, I think that you also, because it does take so much energy, you also have to be aware of your limits. If you can avoid scheduling um, a ceaseless round of these kind of digital performances that you're doing
Right.
with your team, I think that will help you to stay sane. So I think sometimes saying no to a meeting or requesting a reschedule can be a good way to respond to the digital demands of the time.
Yeah, that's hard too. You
Mm,
know,
mm,
I mean, that is, yeah. I just think about it from, from my perspective and what I see, some of the other people I'm dealing with going through. It's constant and it's nonstop.
mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's hard to say no,
Yeah.
especially if you're a younger professional. You may wonder, like, can I say no in this situation?
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, at the same time, like the Gen Z folks
Well,
are showing themselves quite proficient at,
yes.
um, you know, saying, "Here are my boundaries. Here's what I got to deal with." So I don't know if that's the the word that Gen Zs need to hear. That might be more the word that Gen Xers like you and me need to
No,
hear.
it is. I definitely agree with that. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, but that's again for me. For me, it's incredibly difficult because my personality is, the whole thing is I may not be the smartest person, but I'm going to make sure that I outwork you or out
Mm,
outthink you or whatever it is to to get done whatever has to get done.
mhm,
And uh, you know when you look at and I would say even millennials have a much better handle on saying
Uh-huh.
no. You know, my youngest daughter, God bless her, I love her to death. She really opened my eyes to it, like um, right before COVID hit. She was working in a situation she wasn't happy in. We talked about it. Said you keep doing your job search, and she did something that infuriated me.
Mm.
She quit her job by email while on vacation.
Huh. Wow.
Yeah,
That's
and
gutsy.
and I w- I was furious. I said,
Mm.
I mean, look, you're killing your personal brand, you're killing your reputation,
Mm.
you're doing this, you're doing that.
Mm-hmm.
You need to all the things that we've always been told for our generation,
Yeah.
right?
Right. Right.
You don't quit your job unless you have another job. You
Mm.
if you're going to quit, you do it in person. You all those things. And she said, Dad, I'll be okay. This is how
Mm.
we do it now. I said, no, this isn't how we do it now. But she, but where she was right was she was in a position where in her mind it was untenable, and where I would have stuck it out until something else came along. She said enough was enough, and that's where we have to um, maybe there's a better way to quit and do those
Mm.
things, but being able to make that decision
Mhm.
that she was in a place where she didn't really wasn't healthy for her, that I think is a very positive thing, and needs to be, I would necessarily say celebrated, but acknowledged,
Mhm.
and move forward from there.
Yeah, Tim, I think one of the things I've been thinking about lately is just our attitudes towards work itself.
Yeah.
And like there's your attitude towards your job, which might be sucky, it might be amazing. There's your attitude towards the tasks you have to do today. That's another thing.
Thing. Yeah.
But there's like an underlying, often untalked about posture towards work, towards toil. And it's such a huge reality in human life. It's not just when we're on the job, it's in all places of our lives. We're working in the yard, in the house, with our friends, at church, at school, whatever. We're doing toil all the time. And so I think one of the benefits of intergenerational conversation is it brings that back into our awareness. We're like,
Right.
oh yeah, I do have an attitude towards work, which comes out when I say things like kids these days don't know how to work, that probably need some investigation. And so
Mhm.
in that story with your daughter, like there's an underlying attitude towards work that makes sense to her and is different from your attitude. And probably both of you can benefit from that. There's a
Well,
kind of
absolutely. Yeah.
considerateness and tact in your approach to work that your daughter probably could learn from. And then there's a real strong sense of personal boundaries and limits, and possibilities that you can learn from your daughter. I think that's the beauty of intergenerational. It's a gift of
It is.
intergenerational exchange.
It is, and I think there was some growth on those things, just like you said, between me and her, and how I
Mm,
started
good.
to and how
Yeah.
I started to address things, and that was one of the pieces that when we talked about when I started to realize I was old, that you know the population that I was really working with, um, I wasn't necessarily relating to like I thought I was anymore,
Hmm. Hmm.
from that perspective, and a lot of good, a lot of good came from that. I think from,
That's great.
hopefully it came across with students, and I know it came across with my daughter. So I and I come back to, I put a lot more onus on us in our generation to do the to be the ones reaching out to start these conversations, or to understand how they go about doing things.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I think time is a fundamentally, to get a little philosophical,
Yeah.
time is just a weird thing. It's a weird condition. And I we lose track of that. We just get frustrated by time, or we get deluded by how much time we think we have.
Yeah.
But I think hanging out with people in different phases of life can be a really wonderful way to inhabit time more wisely. Uh, So I love that story from your daughter. I think that's really great.
Yeah, I was mad, Craig. I was mad. I was mad. Oh my God, I was so mad. I was, I was so mad. Uh, and again, you look back on things as a parent, and I'm sure you do the same. And you think, why did you react the way that you reacted? And I think a lot of times, and I'm just speaking for me, a lot of times I react because I can't help them at that point. Um,
Mhm.
you know, they've put themselves in a position where me being the person that helps people, there's nothing I can do to help you at this stage.
Oh yeah. Yep.
Now you're
Yep.
now you're truly on your own, and I can't fix it.
Uh-huh. I think that's a really humble and truthful observation. I think it comes with parenting adults a lot. A lot of people feel that.
Yeah,
But I think it comes in the workplace as well. Sometimes, though, just your presence and your way of being is itself a kind of help, a kind of
yeah,
resource to other people. Sometimes we think the only thing we have to offer is what we can say out loud. And maybe it's more of the kind of person that you manage to be when you're near them.
yeah, yeah. And sometimes we just keep your mouth shut.
It's hard to do, Tim.
It
It's hard
is,
to do.
it is. And you talk about the intergenerational communication. Um,
Mhm,
the work that you're doing with your podcast Mode Switch
mhm.
is phenomenal, and I really am enjoying those conversations with
Thank you.
with the different generations.
Me too.
Um,
Me too.
I mean, just learning a lot in how they go about the thought process as well. Not
Mhm,
necessarily, not necessarily, or not always necessarily what they're saying, but how they go about coming to the decisions and thoughts that they're coming to
mhm.
is
Yes,
different.
I think that's it's a it was something I sort of stumbled into.
Yeah,
I, kind of gradually found that, oh my gosh, there are people of different generations who really want to talk about what work is like, what it's feeling like today. And I'm thinking about your podcast, Speaking with Confidence. And I think that a lot of the work of intergenerational communication is learning to speak with confidence from your particular standpoint.
yes,
Um, there's an author named Leslie Newbegin who talks about proper confidence. And I think there's an appropriate confidence that we can have when we're in these kind of complicated and messy conversations with our intergenerational teams, um, where you just say, like, here's how I'm experiencing the world. How about you? And like, not avoiding those conversations, and then also not, like, I don't know, being a bully in those conversations. That's the
right,
tricky
yes.
dance of speaking with confidence.
Mhm. Absolutely, and I think part of that as well is number one, knowing who you are, knowing how you think and how you go about making decisions, and what you value. Um, the whole introspection, and as we grow, how that changes. And I tell my students and clients, if you're still thinking the same way at 40 that you did at 20, you're probably you may be doing it right, but I would suggest that you probably need to go back and do some more introspection. Um,
Uh-huh.
maybe not. I don't know, but I just know how the way I go about doing things now is different than the way I
Uh-huh.
did it 10 years ago. The way I think about things, um,
Uh-huh.
the way uh, just my core values haven't changed, but the way I communicate them has changed. The way I come across has changed, or the way I think about them has changed. And I think we need to do a better job, all the way around doing that, because then again, we get away from the whole idea of worrying about what other people think of us and how that affects
Yeah.
what we do and what we think and what we say and how we go about it.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
Going back to TikTok, we put so much value in what somebody who we don't know thinks is important.
Uh-huh.
What value we put on the clothes that we wear, what value we put on how we look, what whatever it is, that to me has to, we really have to get away from that and start worrying about yourself and thinking about who you are as an individual and not worrying about some of these other things.
I do think self-knowledge is a real source of strength and wisdom. It's not easy today. I think there are a pair of sociologists that I read when I was in grad school, and one of their insights has just stayed with me over all my years of teaching. Abercrombie and Longhurst, and they wrote this book about audiences, and they said today we all feel like, and they were writing this in like 1999, so it was it was a long time ago, but they said today we all feel like we are spectators and performers at the same time, and so you know that's a hard role to carry off. You never know when somebody's filming you or with their phone recording you, and you notice I use the old-fashioned word filming.
Mhm.
um, and you never know when you're also going to encounter somebody else's performance.
Right.
So that sort of weird, constant oscillation between being a spectator, being a performer, it makes self knowledge, like actually knowing yourself, like you're describing, Tim, hard. Um, I do think that that means we need more analog practices. We need more analog habits to develop where we're just sitting quietly with ourselves, and or going for walks, doing the kind of elemental human things, trying not to do more than one thing at once as
Oh
often
God.
as we can. Like these analog practices are so important for
Yeah.
self knowledge.
Yeah. They really are. The whole,
Why did you say, "Oh my God"?
because the whole, idea of only working on one thing at a time. If I could understand that myself, let alone, with helping other people do that, you know, I'm, I find myself doing so many different things at the same time. Whether it's going through emails, trying to read something,
Mm,
trying to put something else together. I
mm,
I kind of
yeah.
have segmented some of the things that I do, and I try to only work on thing on some tasks 15 minutes at a time. Okay, I'm gonna do this for
Mm.
15 minutes. I'm gonna do that for 15
Okay,
minutes.
yeah, that's a good practice.
But a lot of things that I'm doing now requires blocks of time,
Mhm,
hour and a half, and I after 20 minutes, I've got to get up and walk away.
uh-huh,
And it's just the way I go about doing things, the way that I think. Um, but again, knowing that and being able to plan for that is important. But then it takes me so much longer to get back on task because I start back to the old habits of talking on the phone and texting and doing email
mm,
all
mhm.
at the same time. So,
Ugh, I'm with you, Tim. I'm with you.
so Craig, where can people buy the book and where can they find what else you're doing?
Well, I believe the phrase is wherever books are sold, but probably the easiest place to snatch it would be on Amazon. I would love it if you'd go to half price books or some more independent bookseller. That'd be great. And you can also connect with me at themodeswitch.com. That's my landing website, and there you can find the book and also sign up for my newsletter. So that's themodeswitch.com. So yeah, I'd be honored if people would pick up my book and start halfway through like you did, read a chapter here, go jump to the end, read a chapter there, and then yeah, send me a note. Tell me what you think, how you experience these stories and these insights.
Yeah, I think you're going to learn a lot if you buy the book and get into it and actually think about it. Don't
Yeah.
To me, this isn't a book that you just read the book and you put it down. This is a book where you read the book and you think about it and process it and how it affects you and how you can
Mm,
make some small adjustments. You don't have to make big adjustments. It can be small incremental
right.
adjustments.
Hmm. Yeah. Thank you for saying that, Tim. I really appreciate your attention to the work of the book. I do think that it's like part memoir. I'm working through my own stuff. It's also part social science. Like I'm, doing this research with rising professionals, and it's also sort of a kind of spiritual guide as well, like thinking through the issues of what it means to be human in these digital spaces today. So it's all of that. And if you can latch onto a part of that and say, hey, this is helpful for me, that's great. That's super.
And I hate to even say this, but I got to say it because all of my reading is digital. Craig, I can't.
No apology
I
needed, man.
can't because I take my iPad with me almost everywhere I go.
Yeah,
And because I don't get a lot of time to, in this profession, we read more than people ever imagine that we read. But when I go to read things that I want to read about, that's, I can pull out the iPad for 10 or 15 minutes and actually, and not worry, I didn't bring my book, or I didn't bring.
Oh yeah, that's
and,
me.
and
That's
so
me constantly. Where did I put that book?
and so and when I started doing that, I mean, I can't go back because what people don't understand is you can still take notes. I tell my wife that she is a book person. I said, you can still take notes in it. I still write it. I mean, you can still do all those other things. But anyway, and so what my point was, bookshop.org now also sells ebooks, which bookshop.org is um, all local booksellers, and I agree with you. I'd much rather people go to the local stores, those types of things. It helps a lot of things. Helps that owner, that local store owner, helps the local economy, does all those kinds of things. So bookshop.org, and I don't know if yours is electronically there yet or not. But go look.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. I would love for people to see how alternative options might work for purchasing a book like this.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's available on bookshop.org. So good news there.
There you go. That's awesome. Well, Craig, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I really do appreciate it. I think you're doing great work, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
This conversation's been encouraging. Thanks, Tim.
Be sure to visit speakingwithconfidencepodcast.com to get your free ebook, Top 21 Challenges for Public Speakers and How to Overcome Them. You can also register for the Formula for Public Speaking course. Always remember, your voice has the power to change the world. We'll talk to you next time. Take care. I hope you enjoyed the latest episode of Speaking with Confidence. Give us a review to tell everyone why you love the podcast. You can also download, like, and share the podcast with friends. Be sure to visit formulaforpublicspeaking.com and sign up for the Formula for Public Speaking course. It's a step-by-step system to help you become the confident and powerful speaker you've always wanted to be. We'll see you next time. Take care.